Welcome to In the Funnel. My name is Mark Cox. In the Funnel is a group of sales coaches and consultants that help B2B sales teams dramatically improve revenue. Clients come to us when revenue growth is stagnated, or their sales team is not meeting expectations, or they need to recalibrate their sales and go-to-market plan for the upcoming year. Our clients have enjoyed tremendous success working within the funnel, and please hear it straight from them by listening to the testimonial section of this website. What they'll tell you is there's two things that make us unique and different in our space. Number one, we have a process and a methodology. First, for understanding your current state, and then second, for building your sales and go-to-market plan for the upcoming year. The second thing that makes us unique and different is that everybody within the funnel has run a material sales organization in their recent past. We're all practitioners. We don't have any theorists or teachers, and what that means is we can get in front of your sales team and run the next sales meeting, or join them on their next sales call to close your next large prospect. All of us have a passion for professional, disciplined, process-driven sales, and we'd be delighted to talk to you if you're looking to grow revenue for your company. Please feel free to reach out to us through this website at info@inthefunnel.com or by telephone. Thanks for taking the time to watch this.
So I believe that we all have it. I think we all have multiple superpowers, and it's just knowing what you're good at that's better than the guy next to you. And whether it's sales, whether it's construction, whether it's finance, whether it's cooking, you have those, and they can serve you really well in making a human connection. And that's really what sales is. You make a human connection, you build trust, and then you sell something. So if you know what your own superpowers are and how they can help another person, makes a very big difference in the way that you approach the conversation.
Yeah.
You approach it with that desire to help. And I see this a lot with people in business who think their work speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I've been passed over for a promotion 10 times. Well, did you ask for the promotion? No. Okay, so you didn't bring your superpowers. You got to show it. And I think we're all very multifaceted. And so I want people to live their best life, to get what they want, but they got to know who they are, and they got to know what their powers are that they're bringing.
Hey team, welcome to the show today. Today's guest is Dr. Cindy McGovern. So a doctor, she's got a doctorate in organizational communications. And Cindy is also the CEO of Orange Leaf Consulting, where she was coached and guided lots of companies to achieve both personal and professional success. Now the focus is revenue growth, and the focus is also on branding. So Cindy's the author of a couple of great books. Her first book, Every Job is a Sales Job: How to Use the Art of Selling to Win at Work. So there's a theme we've heard before. Everything is sales. To sell is human. Remember Daniel Pink? Today's book that we're going to really do a deep dive on is Sell Yourself: How to Create, Sell, and Live a Powerful Personal Brand. We have a great conversation today, folks. We're going to talk about, being intentional about that brand, how, of course, you have to sell yourself before you can sell anything else, how it's so important to understand the values you bring to the table, and really that superpower that's uniquely yours that you bring to the table when developing that personal brand. Cindy's obviously got a lot of depth and experience here. She's a great straight talker. And one of her personal superpowers, by the way, is kindness. But as she explains, kindness doesn't mean she's afraid to, give you the candid truth when working with your company, tell you what you need to hear to be able to elevate. Cindy's been a keynote presenter at lots of conferences, and you're going to understand why when you listen to the podcast here today. And again, as we all try and elevate the performance and professionalism of sales, our brand, extremely important. One of the things I've always said is your reputation is the only thing that's going to stay with you for the next 40 years, but it will. It's amazing how broad your reputation will spread. You think, the US is a big place? Not really at a professional level. You'll be amazed over decades of the people you keep coming across again. So team, please lock in and let's listen to some great wisdom from Cindy today. Also pick up the book, Sell Yourself, How to Create, Sell, and Live a Powerful Personal Brand. I really enjoyed my conversation with Cindy today and learned lots. I'm sure you will too. And if you enjoy today's podcast, the Selling Well podcast, please like and subscribe to it and tell your friends. Here's Dr. Cindy McGovern. Hey, Cindy, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks for having me today, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here.
A pleasure to be here from Vienna, Austria. What's taking you there today?
A little work and a little play. So it's beautiful and snowing right now. So very festive.
Wonderful. It's got to be a little play in Vienna, Austria.
Absolutely. I mean, come all this way. Gotta get out and see the sights.
Well, listen, thanks so much for making time for us today on that kind of in the middle of your vacation and business trip. But I was really excited to speak to you today, Cindy. I love, first of all, I love the title of your first book, 2019, Every Job is a Sales Job. I completely believe that. I think, by the way, I hope that was a massive bestseller because that is so spot on as articulated by our pal from this show, Daniel Pink, in To Sell is Human. He had that same premise that everything is sales. And he didn't come at it with your background. But today we're going to be talking about your new book, Sell Yourself, How to Create, Live, and Sell a Powerful Personal Brand. However, let's start here. Would you give us the short story of your journey in professional sales that got you here?
Absolutely. So I was a reluctant salesperson, believe it or not.
Wow, we hear that a lot.
I was pushed into it. I was a consultant. I was a college professor before that, went into consulting, and 6 months in, my boss said, "Oh, we're going to put you in a sales role." And I honestly thought, I'm going to get fired. I can't sell. I don't know how to do that. And once I got into it, I realized it was really helping people. And I went, wait a minute, I like doing that part. I'm pretty at it. So I had to change my mindset on it. But what's funny is that's actually what led me to write the first book, Every Job is a Sales Job, because when I realized what sales, in particular consultative sales, is, I went, oh, wait, everybody needs to know this. So I wrote the book I wish somebody had given me in high school.
Well, how interesting, first of all, on a couple of fronts, but you said consultative selling. In our podcast with Daniel Pink a couple of weeks back or a couple of months back, at the end, his sort of snapshot was sales today is management consulting. It's not about pitching. It's not about, presenting information. It's actually about understanding how to get somebody to a better future, how to solve a problem for a client or a prospect. So it's an interesting, on paper, you'd say somebody like yourself with a PhD in organizational communication, jumping into sales, first of all, probably took a lot of courage based on the stereotypes of sales from 40 years ago. Most people don't understand what it is today. So that must have been pretty scary for you. And then quickly you have this epiphany that, every job's a sales job because you're just helping people.
It's funny you say that because it's absolutely true. And what ended up happening when I first got in that sales role is I had an avatar in my mind of sales. Right. And it was exactly what you said. It's that stereotypical, pushy, almost to the manipulative aspect. That's not sales, that's manipulation. Selling really is about finding solutions and good matches. And if it's not a good match, you don't sell them anything. But I wasn't ever taught that. And I think most people who aren't in a sales career are not taught that. And so I felt very compelled and still do feel very compelled to help people change their vision of sales, what they think of it, and kind of take the ick factor away from it and help them realize sales is actually a skill that can help them get what they want.
What a great bit of phrasing. Take the ick factor away from sales. Hey, by the way, for the team who does these podcasts, I would listen to that clip as our kind of entry clip here today. But let's start there, because obviously you've got this kind of evolved kind of view of sales and taking the ick factor away from sales. And I know you do speaking on some of the largest stages in the world on this. Tell us a little bit about your definition of sales and what we're really trying to do, and maybe bridge the difference between that stereotype, but what it really is today, Cindy.
It really stems from what the goal of the conversation is. And if you're the stereotypical one, it's about your goals. It's about consultative or the kind of sales that you and I teach and do. It's about the other person's goals. And even with but it's funny because even with successful salespeople, I have this conversation all the time in our coaching where they say, well, the client needs this, this, this. And my first question when we're unraveling is, well, what was their goal? Well, I don't know. Okay, then you didn't actually use a sales process for pushing your sales agenda. Very, very different things.
Well, it's funny. When we do coaching, we do a little bit of the same thing. And we might actually be in front of a client or a prospect with some folks on the team. And they'll always give me a nasty look when they'll take me into deals that are kind of midway through. They want to show the best deals, right? So they pick the ones I get to observe. But I might ask a client or a prospect in the middle of the meeting, say, why are you doing this? Why is this a smart thing to do for your company? When somebody 2 levels up says, why do we have to do this instead of the 19 other things we should be doing? What do you tell them? And by the way, I always get kicked under the table. Somebody, or I get the death stare from somebody on our team saying, what are you doing? But the reality of it is, if it's not good for the other party, if we don't understand those things, the deal is just going to stall down the road anyway. So let's have that conversation today and really understand those things now. And so I must say today, by the way, Cindy, because of the topic you speak about, selling yourself and the powerful personal brand, I put on my Sunday best today. We're recording this on a Monday morning. Normally I'm in track pants and unshaven. But I put on my Sunday best for today. So let's talk a little bit about sell yourself, how to create, live, and sell a powerful personal brand. What prompted you, of all the things you know about professional sales and after your first book, what prompted you to write this book?
So it's been a journey. Obviously, the first book was about helping people to realize sales is not icky, and even professional salespeople, because some of them will say, oh, well, I'm in sales, but I'm not in sales. And my response is, of course you're not in sales, because nobody wants to do that part. That's the manipulation. But when I started doing, I'm 17 years into sales consulting at this point, helping companies and individuals grow. And what I realized is they're missing part of the sales process, which is I have to buy you before I buy whatever you're selling.
Right.
And you have a brand, whether you realize it or not, you've got one. So why wouldn't you want to put your best foot forward? Why wouldn't you want to craft that? And then so at the time of us recording this podcast, we're coming out of the great remorse, the great resignation, the great remorse, the great reset. I think we're in the great rebrand. I think this is the phase that we're in as a world. And this is your chance to bring what I call your superpowers to the forefront and really differentiate yourself from the pack, regardless of what you're selling. And I think that everybody's selling themselves. So why not do it on purpose with a little intention behind it? And we'll borrow from the skills of sales professionals to do that.
Well, you're talking to a comic nerd, and you can tell by looking at me, but the folks who are listening here, they don't know I'm a comic nerd. They're only hearing us on audio. So let's talk about that superpower. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I believe that we all have it. I think we all have multiple superpowers, and it's just knowing what you're good at that's better than the guy next to you. And whether it's sales, whether it's construction, whether it's finance, whether it's cooking, you have those, and they can serve you really well in making a human connection. And that's really what sales is. You make a human connection, you build trust, and then you sell some. So if you know what your own superpowers are and how they can help another person, makes a very big difference in the way that you approach the conversation.
Yeah.
You approach it with that desire to help. And I see this a lot with people in business who think their work speaks for itself.
Mhm.
Or, I've been passed over for a promotion 10 times. Well, did you ask for the promotion? No. Okay. So you didn't bring your superpowers. You got to show it. And I think we're all very multifaceted. And so I want people to live their best life, to get what they want, but they got to know who they are and they got to know what their powers are that they're bringing.
That intentionality is something we hear a lot about. Being intentional about who you are and what you want. And that superpower we've heard referenced a couple of different times, Cindy, maybe in slightly different ways. I know folks in a coaching program called Strategic Coach, which we love, they call it unique ability.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that thing you love to do. You might be pretty good at a whole bunch of things, but there's certain things that you love to do that give you energy. And where you're sort of okay at other things, you can do them, but they take energy from you. So let's sit back around if we can. That superpower we're going to touch on again. But when we're building our personal brand, I know in the book we say you've got to start with your core values. Tell us a little bit about why that's the starting point and how we do that.
So if you're not clear on who you are in sort of your moral compass and your ethical compass and just who you want to be in the world, it's going to be really hard to live up to that brand.
Yeah.
So in your creation of your brand, be honest with yourself. If you're not the guy or gal that's going to be super extroverted and you love people, then try to be that because you're going to exhaust yourself. But it does come back to the core values of sort of the legacy that you want to leave as a human being on the earth and who you are. And so, one of my core values is kindness.
Lovely.
But it's more than just being kind. It's about being kind even when the answer is not so nice.
Right.
So in my consulting that we do, we always say, if your baby's ugly, we're going to tell you because we're kind.
Right.
So, part of our brand as a company, part of my brand as a consultant and coach is kindness, even when you don't want to hear it. So it's about the core value, but about the impact you make with those core values. And so really sitting with that and deciding what they are, but then how they're going to show up in the world is actually the key to really crafting and creating your personal brand.
Well, I think it's so interesting, by the way, that kindness of all progress starts with the truth. So, the best people, the closest people in your life love you, but they've also been comfortable telling you when, you need to hear something because they actually care about you. So,
Yes.
So it's not always easy. They can tell you the one thing, but, or tell you what they think you want to hear, but it takes a real friend or a real family member to sit down and say, listen, I want to share this with you. Mm-hmm. And so that's the true friend because they're actually really interested in your well-being. But when we start with those core values, I think those are so important. And I think they're so important for everybody listening to this podcast, everybody, but certainly those who are starting their sales career. Because I think no matter what, we're still overwhelmed a little bit by that 40-year-old, 50-year-old stereotype of sales, which is I have to have this veneer of being the salesperson. And I think this whole concept, by the way, causes huge anxiety for salespeople. I need to be something I'm not because I'm going to try and cajole you or manipulate you into doing something that's not good for you and that you don't want to do. And what no one ever tells anyone is the truth is you cannot cajole or manipulate somebody into doing something they don't want to do. It doesn't work. So it doesn't work. So don't try it. And by the way, you also can't pull it off with a veneer. It took me a long time to learn in the early days of professional sales because I was such a mess in my 20s. A good person, but maybe enjoying life a little too much, doing the wrong things at the wrong time. And so it always felt when I was starting my career selling photocopiers, I had this veneer of the perfect suit and the perfect tie and trying to be so perfect. And the reality was I've been drinking to 2:30 in the morning the night before. So problem, there was always this battle. I just didn't feel sincere or authentic. I think your value exercise in the book would have been a helpful one for the 22-year-old version of me. And what I really like, and you correct me if I've got any of this wrong, but you talk about, starting with someone you really admire that you know personally, living or gone, and trying to capture in 15 words why you admire them so much. And then you go then to your favorite memory of your life. Hard to pick one, I bet, for most people, but trying to capture why it's the favorite memory, also in 15 words or less. And then combining those 30 words and taking a look and seeing what are the common themes that come out of it.
So it's funny that's the exercise that I wish my 20-year-old self had as well. So when you said it,
okay, we're in the same boat. Thanks for that.
And what's humorous about what you said a second ago with regard to knowing where you are in the authenticity and feeling like you had to be that salesperson, I'm using air quotes. I've had a 20 plus year career in sales, and I don't play golf and I don't drink whiskey. So, but that's the stereotype, is you got to be able to do this.
Yeah.
I'm a horrible golfer. I played it like twice in my life and I didn't care for it. And so I don't do it. So, but it's that idea of this is who you have to be in this role. So that's partially why I wanted to do this exercise with people. And the book is kind of like a workshop in a book, as you saw, but it's because we need someone almost to guide us through that, to help us to get to that point. And what people may be surprised about is not just what's on that list, but what's not on that list. When you start really getting down to those words, you maybe thought it was X, Y, and Z, and it turns out they're not on there. Mm-hmm. And so that's when you really start to tap into your core authenticity and who you truly want to be versus who maybe you were taught to be, who you were conditioned to be. This is about you, not about anybody else.
Well, again, so spot on when the folks think about this. By the way, I think we can all go through this exercise. But for me personally, that journey, which, is probably still a work in process. It was only when all those other things stopped mattering and I just relaxed and just started being myself. People sense authenticity. I'll make jokes at inappropriate times. I might even make inappropriate jokes. Okay. There's this thing about not caring a little bit that I'm just going to be me now. And by the way, people go, okay, this guy's going to tell us the truth one way or the other. And so then that trust and credibility comes through. This doesn't mean you show up ill prepared or you don't do your work. This just means feel free to be who you are, because I think most of us don't realize how great you all are. You never see it at the time. So you see it later. You look back in pictures and go, wow, I did look great. But at the time you're walking around saying, hey, these are the 5 things wrong with me. So I think starting with that value system is just super important to understand what is it you want to be. And as professional salespeople, that human connection is so incredibly important. There was somebody, Cindy, maybe you've followed this person. I don't think we've had them on the show, but his name is Dr. Morgan. I forget the first name. And I think the book is Can You Hear Me? It's called Can You Hear Me? Maybe you're smiling, maybe you know. But one of the things that's brought up in that book is a very important point that says within literally decimal points of a second, when you meet someone, what you're trying to determine is what's their intent. And you talked about walking into that sales call. Does a salesperson thinking about, oh boy, I'm below quota. I've got to get this deal. I got to get this person to sign. Or are they walking in with this intent saying, hey, I'd like to trigger an amazing conversation to find out really what's going on with Cindy and her business and her division, and figure out one way or the other, how do we help Cindy, whether it's something my company can do or not. That intent is something we all sense almost inherently. Cindy, did this ring a bell for you?
Absolutely. And I kind of talk about this in the book a little bit, and this is part of what my coaching is too, is there's a huge difference between rapport and trust.
Tell us about that.
Rapport is I like you. I'll go play golf with you. I'll go hang out with you and have a cup of coffee. I'll sit in your office for 3 hours. That means I like you. Trust is I'm going to show you the vulnerability of what's missing to help me get to the next level. So you sell me something. And salespeople, even seasoned salespeople, in my opinion, mix those two up a lot. And that's what gets you stuck in the friend zone.
Right.
You're stuck in the friend zone. You're telling me there's a chance. Nope, you're going to stay there forever. And it really does begin with the first 5 minutes of their meeting. Because what ended up happening is the recipient, the person they were trying to sell to, that customer, smelled the desperation.
Yeah.
Smelled that there was some intention that was not about them. And if you walked in the room thinking of your quota instead of their needs, they saw it, they read it on you. You now are overcoming an objection that was never stated, but is absolutely present.
Yeah. This happens all the time. I mean, when we're coaching sales teams, and we end up meeting hundreds of them in a given year, hundreds of salespeople, and they tell us about a deal. We might be doing a deal review. They're going to do this, they're going to do this, and when you ask the salesperson, why are they doing this? Well, we're going to migrate them to the cloud. We're going to take our on-premise, take them to the cloud. Why are they doing this? I don't know. They just said they wanted to do it. And you kind of said, well, is your intent about helping them make the right decision? By the way, why would they do it with us? They've outsourced everything to AWS. Why are they going to outsource to our cloud versus AWS? So it's really, and I think, again, a lot of this comes back to confidence. So they don't want to ask the question in case they get the bad answer, which is going to make them look a little more concerned in the sales forecasting meeting they've got with me the next day. Or they don't feel like they've got the tool set to actually explain the value proposition of our company, which is why you should outsource to our cloud versus somebody else's cloud. They don't know what the answer to that is. So they've got this hope as a strategy thing saying, hey, the client drove this. Maybe this thing will go our way. So let's keep going on this brand. So because that's the core theme of the book. Tell me a little bit about all the elements, Cindy, of my personal brand. What do I have to think about outside of the values if I'm trying to put forward, a personal brand that I'm going to be proud of?
So I teach it in the book in 3 phases, and it's really creating your brand, living your brand, and then selling your brand, which is living. And so what I want people to realize is you've got a brand already, whether you realize it or not. And if you don't think you have one, then that's even worse because everybody knows it but you. So you might need to do what I call an honest inventory. Ask people that you trust. What are the words that they use to describe you? How do they talk to you? I just did this with a group of brand new insurance salespeople. They're selling insurance. And I said, I need you to go around the next 2 weeks in your office, and I want you to hear how people refer to you. Are they referring to you as the new gal? Are they referring to you as hungry but inexperienced? What are the words? And then you start seeing what you need to sell against, because you're already living your best self. You dressed up, you came to work, you're showing up, you're doing the work, but you're selling the wrong thing maybe. Back to the planning and crafting of the brand, but you got to know what's out there already. So that's the first thing. And then you start thinking about the legacy you want to leave. And then you start to live it. And it was funny because you said you dressed up in your Sunday best here on a Monday morning. And we're talking about branding, but it's absolutely true. We sell to the 5 senses. And we have to remember that as salespeople, your communication, even via email, the fact that you said good morning in the email versus hi, or went right into the body of the message. All of these things are the way you're living your brand. And so let's go back to the brand being curious or kind. If my emails have no salutations, no closings, I don't really care about who I'm talking to. I'm just saying, hey, what time are we meeting? That's not me living my brand. And I'm actually selling the wrong thing. So we've got to kind of rectify that in our minds. And it all starts with the creation of the brand.
Very, very good. And so how quickly do people make these first impressions on me when I'm going to meet that next, well, when we met each other half an hour ago? How quickly is that impression made?
I honestly think it's made in a split second, because it's just the world that we live in. There are too many distractions. There are, 19 shiny objects that pass in front of us. And so I think that we kind of create that snap judgment of whether I'm going to trust you, I'm not going to trust you, because that's really what it is. And, we both work in the sales world. People listening to this, that no sale happens without trust. So that's the first piece is, can I trust you or not? When you walk past someone on the street, can I trust that I'm safe to walk past this person, or am I going to give them a wide berth? You're actually making micro negotiations and sales every day. We just don't call it sales.
Right. So you're always, I've read somewhere again, I won't be able to remember now, but that our brain is scanning the environment for danger 5 times a second. And danger might be, oh, Cindy's going to physically attack me. Or danger might be, Cindy's going to make me look silly. Or Cindy's going to reach in and remove money magically from my wallet I hadn't intended on spending. That's why people don't walk into retail stores. Somehow magically, somebody's going to pull money out of your wallet that you didn't anticipate. I'm going to be cajoled into something. So there's always this, concern folks have. How do I break through that so that I share my values when I'm meeting somebody for the first time? If I've gone through this exercise and I want to show these things, these 4 or 5 core values, how do I actually do that early in a sales call or continually throughout the sales call? We've talked about a couple of examples here with emails. I almost did this exactly before we started. Somebody asked a question, I was about to respond, and you had just logged in, and I put down my device and said, I'm not in that email because I'm keyed up to talk to Cindy. I'm not responding to anything right now because I wasn't really focused on them. But how do we kind of live these values with our sales pursuits? Let's keep talking about a few more of these things.
So I love the question. And it's literally, we're deciding when the person walks in, but we're actually deciding in our first encounter, whatever that is. And so trust is built faster if someone introduced us together that I trust. So,
yes,
if our mutual friend, this person said, oh, no, Mark's a great guy, then all of a sudden you have a leg up in the trust space, because that's what we're talking about. It's either whether I'm going to trust you, whether I'm not, and what level of trust I'm going to get. So that's the first one, is it happens before. It happens in the initial negotiation for time. We're going to meet together. How respectful was I of referring and deferring to you? Or was I am available on Tuesday at 5 or Wednesday at 10:30, which again, there's nothing wrong with you controlling your time. I think everybody's time is just as valuable, but it's the way in which you've presented it.
Yes.
And it's the message that you're selling them on, which is, if you're saying, I am available at this or this only, that's saying my time is more valuable than yours. My agenda is more valuable than yours. Then that takes you down the slippery slope of my goal is more important than yours.
Right.
Not what you sell. So it's helping people to recognize that the sale happens before you walk in. Then it absolutely is all the 5 senses. Did you put on a gallon of cologne today, or did you put the right amount? Was your shirt pressed or not? Did you comb your hair? All of those things, because again, I'm deciding whether I'm safe. Is the safe environment for me to proceed? And if it's not, and we've all been there as salespeople, you feel it in the room immediately.
You do. You feel warm people. And that's something where I don't think I've always been that warm person. Once you get to know me, I'm extremely funny and engaging and a little nutty. But I think my veneer and presentation, for a lot of good and logical psychological reasons, I think I've always had a little veneer. So I think people who first meet me go, he's a little formal. And or he's a little perfect or formal or something. So it's not always easy to warm up. So over time, I intentionally try and be loose. Or when I'm meeting younger people, I intentionally try and be fairly funny and a little nutty, so they go, okay, this, it's okay to be kind of vulnerable with this fellow.
Mhm.
So this is something I think really important to work on continually for ourselves, because it's all about this hard thing of building trust. For salespeople, I think one of the main opportunities to build trust goes back to Cialdini's, concepts that build that help influence.
Mhm.
And one of them is just do your research before you walk in. In
Yes.
this day and age, there's no reason not to know who you're speaking to, what have they been up to, what's their career look like, their business, their industry, what's going on, how do they compete and win. If you can trigger one or two of those things, his theory of reciprocity seems to kick in, where right off the bat they go, well, boy, I'm kind of chuffed that Cindy's done a little research on me before we've had this conversation. Now I'm a little warmer to Cindy right off the top. So the theory of now I'm going to they've sort of earned the right for a little bit of conversation with me here by doing some work before they come into the meeting. Do you see that as well sometimes, Cindy?
100%. And what it does, not to go all Dr. Cindy on us here, but like what it does is it's that psychological moment of, oh, wait a minute, I'm important in this conversation. You're not just here with your own agenda.
Right.
Spend time out of your day to figure me out. Now, granted, I know you're here to sell me something, but at the same time, it's still that, oh, you do know me. You do know who I am. And I've been on the receiving side of that. And it's funny, there was many years ago when I was doing my first book, I was interviewing public relations firms, and we went through the same college for graduate school. And I looked them up on LinkedIn and on the internet. Clearly they had not done their research on me. And we get on the call and I'm waiting for him to say something. And I was like, well, that's what, we do. And made a reference to the school. He's like, oh, you went there? And I went, and we're done here.
And we're done here.
You're literally supposed to be representing who I am as an author and as a brand. And you didn't take 5 minutes to go to LinkedIn profile or Google my name. And it's not an ego thing. It's nothing like that. And I want listeners to hear this. It's that was what he was selling in that moment. His job was to sell me as the brand. He didn't even go look at it. So it's one of those things where if you show that you're understanding the circumstances and you're understanding the decision maker and what maybe they're up against in their industry, maybe what the challenges are going to be, it shows that you're ready and you're trustworthy. And that's the key.
It's trust and that credibility. I think, the trust is, I really believe, by the way, this is not new on the trust front. I mean, Dale Carnegie in 1930 wrote about win friends and influence people. It's about them.
Yeah.
So, and we know that in our life, right? We have those friends when you meet them, it's unbelievable how interested they are in you. And it's just more and more and more on you, and you love them. And, you've got to be honest with yourself. You love them because they love you. So, but it's been out there for, hundreds of years. And How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is always on the top 20 nonfiction list. Still, like every second year, it gets up there. But it's the other part I think you've touched on there. You said, what's going on with their business, their industry. We have to have, both business acumen and industry acumen. We have to have, that's how we get credibility. We actually know something about you and your business and your industry and the top trends. And it's so shockingly easy to find that out also. Top 5 trends in insurance, top 5 trends in financial services today, key issues, top technology players in financial. Walk in and do that kind of education. And again, it all comes across. I think this is where you get that confidence that I've done my work and I think I've earned the right for a conversation. I may have a point of view as to how I can help Cindy, but what's more important is really earning the right to really understand where Cindy and her business and their industry is at. And how can I help them get to the next level? What are the top priorities? And then why? right? Well, of course, we've got to grow revenue. Of course, we've got to reduce expenses. Why? What are you experiencing out there? How does your business compete and win in the marketplace? It's those questions, pre-prepared questions that help build that trust and credibility. One thing I have to ask, why did you name your company Orange Leaf Academy? Where's the orange leaf come in?
So people are a little bit afraid of change a lot of times, and I wanted to find something that represented change that people weren't afraid of, but actually looked forward to and embraced. And so in the fall, leaves fall off for growth. So that's where Orange Leaf came from. So I've got Orange Leaf Consulting and the Orange Leaf Academy.
What a great, by the way, I love the fall. I did. It's always, it's been so short and I always love it. We're Canadian, so the fall is huge for us and it's so beautiful. What a great name. I love even the explanation of it. Fantastic. I'm going to have to think about In the Funnel. By the way, those listening here, if you got an idea for In the Funnel, it'd be painful, but we may have to think about that from a branding perspective. So Cindy, I'm sure everybody listening today has really sort of reinforced and got some good other tools to think about how important their branding is. And the book, folks, is Sell Yourself: How to Create, Live, and Sell a Powerful Personal Brand. And I love the live portion of that. How do folks learn more, Cindy, if they want to find out a little bit more about you or a little bit more about Orange Leaf?
orangeleafconsulting.com, orangeleafacademy.com, or drcindy.com.
Fantastic. And when we're thinking about sales organizations running into next year, so this will be 2023, what would they engage your firm to do? How can you help them?
Differentiating themselves from the competition by actually turning every person in your organization into a salesperson to support you in your sales role.
Whoa, fantastic summary. That's fantastic. By the way, everybody out there with your client success teams, there's the low-hanging fruit for Dr. Cindy, okay, where we want to think about turning everybody in the organization into a salesperson. Who wouldn't want to do that?
It's where the friction is for most salespeople. And so it's always funny to me when salespeople say, well, we know our sales stuff, but it's the service team, it's the fulfillment team. Well, then teach them how to sell, because that's actually what they're doing when they're fulfilling. It's wish fulfillment. They're the ones that are delivering on what you sold. So they just need to know how to sell to be able to support you.
Wow. Wish fulfillment. Love that too. By the way, think of these easy things to remember, particularly at this time of year when we're interacting with every single client and prospect we've got. I heard a great story from a friend. I have to share this one about the wish fulfillment. So a friend of mine is named Rob Maddich. He runs an amazing company called PureFacts Financial Solutions. They're on track to be a unicorn. It's just an amazing SaaS solution for wealth management. But he tells the story, and I hope he doesn't mind me using this. He tells this story of wanting the whole organization to love their client, love the customer, love the client. And he tells the story of being at Disney. And he's not one to maintain tickets and keep things on track and all those types of things. His lovely wife, Karen, does that. And he said, went to Disney, they had the 3 kids. You know, anybody who's been to Disney knows it's thousands of dollars for day passes for 5 people. They just get the tickets. They go to the first ride and he's lost the tickets already. Okay. So off they go to client services, and a very young lady in customer service says, how's your day going? And he says, it's a nightmare. And she says, well, let's talk about how we turn that nightmare into a Disney dream. That's the first thing out of her mouth at Disney. And he said within, 9 minutes, he's got new tickets. She's made him feel great. Everybody is off to the races and so on and so forth. But just think of that impression, that the impact that's had, where I don't know how many years later that story gets shared, but I just love that story. And how often are we maybe running through our days where we've got a client or a prospect or somebody on our team who's having an issue, but we're not so concerned about them because I'm running to my next board meeting. I'm running here, I'm running there. I've got a proposal due. I've got a podcast with Cindy, and we don't think about them and how we absolutely help them. And all that is part of that brand. Cindy, thank you so much for joining today. What a pleasure meeting you.
It was so fun. Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I feel like we could have talked all day.
I think we could have. We'll have to have you back. We're going to have you back. And I'm sure you're going to be releasing other books. So we'll bring you back for sure then. And I'd like to just thank everybody who listened today. So as many of you know, we run the Selling Well podcast to try and improve the performance and professionalism of B2B sales and to improve the lives of professional salespeople. We also know that we're not perfect at doing this. And so we love constructive criticism. So if you like today's podcast, awesome. Please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast. Tell all your friends. That stuff that actually matters to us. But if you didn't like the podcast or there's something I can be doing differently, please let me know. My email is markcox@inthefunnel.com. That's my personal. I check that one. And I love constructive criticism. Let us know what we can do to make this more valuable to you. And thank you so much for your investment and your time today. We'll see you the next time on the Selling Well podcast.